Yep.
All right. Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we have a lot of stuff to cover because apparently it is the revenge of the conservative nerds. It's gonna be a good day, man. It's gonna be a good day. We're winning. I think we're winning the culture war right now. First of all, the most dangerous man in South America has officially won the presidential race in Argentina. We're going to talk about that guy because that guy is hilarious. Similarly, Elon Musk and Truth Social are literally throwing a thermonuclear bomb. Actually, no, that wouldn't be literally. Sorry, figuratively throwing a thermonuclear bomb at fake news, and this one might actually like do some damage, which is good because holding people accountable is always amazing. As well, Mike Lindell, who's kind of like a controversial figure, has kind of nailed it with a big lawsuit that's kind of making some noise. Our favorite, Star Trek fan, or maybe like a book reader fan, has completely gone off the deep end. And in Canada, guess what? Plastic straws are back, baby. We're gonna talk about all this and so much more on this week's episode, Tuesday episode of the Shrewd Dudes podcast. Stick around.
All right.
We're back, bro. We're back.
We are indeed back for another episode of Tuesday Newsday. And
That's right.
so we did not have a show on Thursday. Thursday was a little discombobulated. So before
Give us a little rundown, Steven. Give us a little rundown of what happened.
We were expecting one thing on Thursday, and then we did not quite get it.
No, not at all.
It was like, oh, all right, well, the entire reason we came here was sort of nullified, but sure, we'll just have interesting conversations with the Ben Shapiro line.
The nanny state at its finest, really. The nanny state.
It was unfortunate. So if you watch some of the footage that we posted from Thursday, you'll see that we were basically kept at a distance, probably, I would say, at minimum about 10 meters from the Palestinian anti-Ben Shapiro protesters. We did get a few good zingers off on them, but that was basically all we could do, and then they just shouted profanity at us and called for genocide.
My favorite was when they were like shouting, like, "You have blood on your hands!" And I look at my gloves. I'm like, no, I can't find it. I can't find the blood. I think you're lying.
So cheesy.
I know. You can only say so much. So I was like, oh, I'll go with that. That works. Yeah.
So that was Thursday, and then I had kind of this crazy weekend where I had like issues with like my eye was really red. You can't really tell on the live stream right now because I'm wearing glasses. But I haven't worn my contacts since Wednesday of last week because one of my eyes has been super inflamed. Mm-hmm. And so I spent Sunday basically cowering in my bed, hiding from the light. It's the first time I've ever ordered DoorDash, and I ordered it twice in one day.
This is where, that was the weekend where Steven came this close to become a vampire. Like the lights.
Pretty much, yeah. No, I spent the entire weekend like this. Walking around my house like this.
Too much.
Yeah, and then yesterday I was like, do I go to work? And then I like sit in my bathroom and I'm like, my eye hurts just from sitting in a dimly lit bathroom. I'm not going to work today.
Not gonna work, man.
And so instead I just joined Twitter Spaces, and that was a lot of fun.
It was crazy, man. So like Steven had a rough weekend.
It was a rough weekend, but things are looking up now, so things are what they are.
Yeah.
But
I had a crazy busy weekend. I had like board games on Saturday and on Monday, and then I had like a gigantic group of people at my house on Sunday for brunch. Like probably about like a good 15 people total actually came.
Oh dang, that's a lot.
Yeah. And I had like a crap ton of pancakes. So the thing, good. What I should have done is I should have pre-made them. Because that's what took the longest. It took me a long time to make mix and all that. I'm like, I should just have the mix pre-made.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some pancakes on Thursday.
Gonna make them or gonna eat them?
They're gonna be free
Oh.
because I'm gonna have them at Denny's.
Oh. No.
What, they're gonna be
I thought
free?
it was like. I mean, yeah. Yeah. But whenever somebody says pancakes, I usually think like someone's inviting someone over to a house to like
No.
have like fancy pancakes and all that.
No,
you're
I was just
having,
like, I was like, oh, I forgot that Denny's did this. And so I'm like, on Thursday after I'm done work, I'm going to go for birthday pancakes.
Oh, there we go. That's the way to go.
Because that is Thursday is my birthday. It's also
It
American Thanksgiving, so we will have a live stream.
So we have lots to be thankful for on Thursday.
Yes.
It was the day that this man burst through the canal.
Oh boy, let's not go into detail on that. That sounds horrifying.
Have you ever seen that episode of Community where they like congratulations on the day that you came forth from your mother's womb? That coincidentally also seems to or I forget what it said, but they basically found a way to celebrate his birthday as a Jehovah's Witness by using the most inane way of like referring to his anniversary, like the anniversary when he was born. I was like, that was clever. Good job.
Yeah.
All right, man.
But we do need to get going, so let's jump in and let's talk about Argentina.
Argentina.
So I actually have a couple friends from Argentina. So Javier Milei, Argentina's far-right outsider, wins presidential election. Now, I will actually allow them. He is, by all like legitimate standpoints, actually far-right.
No, he's more of a libertarian, I think.
But libertarian is far-right.
Well, describe. Okay,
if we're going by the typical spectrum,
what's your standard?
Like far left equals like complete government control, and then far right equals like basically anarchy.
Yeah.
Then he would be far right, but not extreme right.
Right. Okay.
So I granted them that.
No, I don't usually grant them that. The reason is because if you take the surface level meaning of the word that they try to use, like the surface level, sure, it sounds legitimate, but that's not what they're doing.
I know.
They're actually using the word far right to basically, the idea is booga booga booga. It's like scary, dangerous, bad, right? That's what far right means. When in reality, this is just like this is a very like a hyper conservative, like libertarian kind of guy. But he is eccentric, I will say that, and some of the things that he's
really kind of entertaining. Like
I've
been going back and I've been watching old clips this week of Parks and Rec and watching Ron Swanson, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is an Argentinian Ron Swanson. Because he just giggles with glee when it comes to talking about spending cuts in the government. So anyways, with almost all votes counted, Mr. Milei had won close to 56% in the decisive runoff. The radical newcomer's victory has been described as a political earthquake. Just welcomed by like-minded politicians, such as ex-President Donald Trump, said Mr. Milei would make Argentina great again. Brazil's former leader Jair Bolsonaro said he would hope that hope would shine again in South America, sometimes dubbed El Loco by his critics. Mr. Milei has promised drastic changes, which include ditching the local currency, the peso, for the US dollar, and blowing up the central bank in order to prevent it from printing more money, which he argues is driving inflation, because it is.
It is.
I think
by the way,
at one point I had heard somebody say that they had like 100. Yeah, 100. Yes. I heard 140, but yeah.
Yeah, but like that's
crazy amounts of inflation.
They're way worse than we are. So you can tell, like, this is why people are so overcorrecting, because they're sick and tired of the so like, I love how somebody put it. They said that, like, what would you prefer, a filthy saint or a spotless villain? And I was like, that's kind of a good way to put it, because a lot of times all of the nice sounding people who say all the right things are some of the worst offenders of like destroying families, destroying society, destroying everything. And yet some of them, the most like well-meaning and do like they're actually trying to do the right thing, are not the people who are like look nice or whatever. So like as much as people hate Trump, he's a bit like coarse and a bit crass, but he is 10 billion times better than most of the Democrat politicians in this country, or like what's his name, Trudeau here. He looks nice. He dresses nice. He says all the politically correct things, but he is an absolute douchebag in in everything he does. So this is why Millet is he's very brash. Mm-hmm. He is very brash. I don't know. Can you actually do after you read what you want to read in this story? Can you do a quick Twitter search of Javier Millet and show some of the stuff?
You're wanting to show some of his videos.
Please,
man.
He's
very entertaining.
They're hilarious.
So this is what he's going to do. What he said he's going to do is privatize Argentina's state energy company and the country's public broadcasters. Everything can be put in the hands of the private sector will be in the hands of the private sector. He added that before the YPF could be privatized, it would have to be rebuilt. He did not say how long that process could be. Mm-hmm. He announced that public works would be kept down to 0, and those already in progress would be put out to tender, so there'd be no more state spending. On social issues, he wants to loosen gun laws, abolish abortion, which was legalized in Argentina in 2020, and allow the sale and purchase of human organs. Interesting. His victory comes amid a deep economic crisis, which has seen annual inflation rise to 143% and 40% of Argentines living in poverty. Yep. So opinions polls conducted before the election have given Milei a slight lead over Massa. The wide margin of his win, more than 11% according to provisional results, has surprised many.
No, it's surprised many. I'm sure.
Well, you had to have fairly drastic change, because with 140% inflation and 40% under the living in poverty, it's just absolutely insane.
No, I mean
more of this to say that people are gonna expect more of the same.
I think what happens is that a lot of the political, Argentina is very similar to what we have. No, put Javier Milei, not just Milei.
Okay.
No, Javier with a V. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
V and V are right next to each other.
Okay. This video is crazy.
Todos los que, digamos, los colectivistas, los que ponen, digamos, o sea, esa idea... A ver,
¿por qué le pones de mierda, digamos?
Porque son una mierda. O sea, no, pero es que si pensás distinto te van a aniquilar. Ese es el punto. Es decir, vos al zurdo no le podés dar un milímetro, porque le das un milímetro y lo toma para destrozarte. Es decir, o sea, vos no podés negociar con el zurdo. No se negocia. No se negocia con esa mierda, no se negocia porque te van a llevar puesto. Si tienen un golpeador que caga trompadas a la mujer, digamos, si es de ellos, ¿me entendés? Se pone el pañuelito verde y grita todo el tiempo contra el neoliberalismo, lo ocultan. ¿Me entendés? O sea, si de repente hay alguien que acosó a una...
Okay, there's a couple things they didn't translate that properly. When he said to put on the scarf, and it's not the scarf. The pañuelito is the diaper. He also said don't get they translated it, don't give him an inch. I'm like, no, he said don't give him a millimeter. I was like, they kind of they didn't properly. I think they're using the common phrase, but he's saying don't even give him a millimeter. He's even more drastic than don't give him an inch, which I thought was pretty cool. There's another video. I don't know if you can play it a little bit lower. I don't know if you can scroll down a little bit.
Yep.
This guy. This my favorite one is the one. No, keep going. Fair enough. Oh, maybe go to media. Go. Click on the media tab. Yeah, that's the one where you say you just get nothing but video. So go down. Let's see if the video. They have the video there. Where is it?
The video of him with the chainsaw.
No, the one where he's saying "afuera, afuera."
Oh, that one's great too.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
This is a picture of him with a chainsaw, which he did in a campaign rally because he's just going to use the chainsaw to cut campaign spending. And I'm like, oh, that's
everything.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Where is it?
This is the reaction of
people after he won.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 2016, American election. Oh yeah, it's this one.
Is it this one?
I think.
Es el problema.
No, I'm not.
No, this is the one.
Oh, no, this is one.
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera.
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de Cultura, afuera.
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera.
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera.
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas.
He just keeps on going.
Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación. Nada bueno salió del sector público.
Nothing good came from the public
Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social. afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera.
Indoctrination.
Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. ¿Cómo queda el Estado? Ministerio de Capital Humano, Ministerio de Infraestructura, Ministerio de Economía, Ministerio de Justicia, Ministerio de Seguridad, Ministerio de Defensa, Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores.
Okay.
Ministerio...
I am going. I am going to make a compilation video tonight before I go to bed, and I'm gonna make a compilation video of him doing that, and then Ron Swanson just like giggling every single time he does it. It's so great.
Nice.
But yeah, no, this guy is very, very entertaining, and he actually has like a lot to. Like, he has an economics degree. He's written many papers on like economic theory.
Oh yeah, he's an economist.
Like, he is very. What happened to your friend?
What friend?
What's this?
Oh, he's talking about this account?
Oh. I'm not
Who's
sure.
talking?
I don't know what you're talking about.
He needs to be a little more precise.
More context with that.
Yeah, a little more context, and we'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what friend you're talking about.
Can you go to the link that was just posted on the Twitch?
Yes.
This video shows how eccentric this guy is. Which, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's entertaining. I will say he's a very entertaining guy. Which I'm like, but he's also like my favorite thing about him is that he literally does not give a crap.
No,
that's my favorite thing about him. At this point, with the politicians and how many look at this guy.
Se porta mal y quiere ser castigada, pero para ella siempre estoy listo.
Dancing with the ladies.
La ropa, pero yo la debito. Pero primero le hago el amor, taloneo en la cola pa' que entre en calor. La agarro de la cinta y con el cinto le voy a dar. Yo sé por qué me viene a buscar.
Now that is one thing I definitely will disagree with him on. Is kind
he's a little bit too much of
he's very much pro sexual liberation.
Well, because he did like what's it called, tantric yoga.
Yeah,
which is like very sexual. It's very sexual in nature.
Sexual.
Like the guy is like, how do I put it? At this point, because here in Canada, people are all scared about Pierre Poilievre. It's a whole fear campaign. That's all the Trudeau liberals can do. It's all about like booga booga booga. Trudeau, Poilievre is going to bring far right, MAGA politics to Canada. It's all about creating the illusion of the big boogeyman kind of thing, right? And so, and then in the States, in the USA, it's all about creating the idea that Trump's going to destroy everything. This guy's like, oh no, I'm just going to do it. I am going to destroy every ministry, destroy everything, everything big government. And he also doesn't care. He's like, yep, I'm all about far right politics. I like that about this guy. Who knows? But I think whatever he does is probably gonna be better than whatever has been done before that. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a net positive. What were you?
No. So I'll show you something interesting. So Twitter has changed their live streaming.
What have they done? I
will show you.
Okay, so I'm curious.
Yes, I am very kind of surprised by this, but this is actually pretty cool. So they've turned the live streaming function into more of a Twitch stream.
Interactive?
Yes. And so you can have the video and then you have the chat, which is live chat. And that chat will also, I'm fairly certain, because that chat is linked up to our restream.
Mm-hmm.
That it will appear on.
Okay, real time, experimentation.
And I am wrong. I thought it would appear on the they're probably going to set it up eventually on Restream so that it shows up on our chat on the show.
Mhm.
But this is a brand new thing for Twitter. So we'll see how it goes. So I'll leave it open just in case people come and join. Because that's pretty cool.
Wait, how do you get to that like chat option on the if you're doing it on Twitter? I'll see
I
if I can figure
included
it
it.
out.
I posted the link to it. So if you wanted to join the Twitter kind of live chat, then you are free to do it. And I will keep an eye on that, and I'll sort of switch back between both the Twitch stream and the Twitter stream, and then we should have kind of an interesting time of it. Anyways, let's move on to the next stuff that we're going to be covering on the show today. So starting off with Elon.
Oh, this is big, man. It is
pretty big. So X sues Media Matters after report about ads next to anti-Semitic content. So social media company X on Monday sued me. They don't say X, formerly known as Twitter, anymore.
No, they just kind of go with it.
Sued media watchdog group Media Matters, alleging the organization defamed the platform after it published a report that said ads for major brands had appeared next to posts touting Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. X, formerly Twitter, has faced growing outrage since Media Matters published a report on Thursday, which led IBM, Comcast, and other several major advertisers to pull ads from the platform in response. The report also came a day after X owner Elon Musk expressed agreement with a post on the platform that falsely claimed Jewish people stoked hatred against white people. In the lawsuit filed in a district court in Texas, X claimed Media Matters manipulated the social media platform by using accounts that exclusively followed major brands of users, known to produce fringe content, and resorted to endlessly scrolling and refreshing the feeds until it found ads next to extremist posts. Media Matters report misrepresented the typical experience on X with the intention of harming X and its business, the company said in the lawsuit. So
they basically did what I heard was called tortious interference.
Yes.
Which is let's say you and I make a deal. Like, we're going to work together and we make like a big money deal. And then somebody comes to me and says, you know what? I want you to stop, basically cancel or stop working with him and, don't give him money because and I'm going to use some kind of a blackmail to do that. That's tortious interference. You're basically interference with the business relationship of two parties, usually in malicious ways, not in a oh, did you know this? Does this happen? Like more in a if you don't do this, or I'm gonna put pressure on you in order to do that. But it got beyond that, because the big thing about this is that Media Matters is it's a nonprofit, but its entire goal of its existence is to publish all sorts of hit pieces against conservative. Like, everyone gets hit by this in the conservative world. Michael Knowles talks about all the time about how he's Media Matters is gonna take my clip out of text. Like Tim Pool, Tipka IRL, everyone there basically knows, Media Matters is gonna do this. It's become kind of like almost like a regular occurrence where they just expect it now. They don't even think of it oh no, this is never gonna happen. Like, they actually plan on it. But the problem is that it's no longer just fake news. It's not just the fake news thing. Is that and people, it's not even just that people are listening to them, is that these organizations like Media Matters are able to cause real damage to major companies. And so what happened here is they got caught and busted intentionally making up an actual thing. So they manipulated the algorithms to try to create this scenario, and then try to imply that this is a regular user experience when it's not. Actually, the one thing I heard was that they were the only ones that saw what they posted on their in the screenshot that they used for their article, and secondly, that what was it of millions of ad views and ad impressions that show up. This was the only time this actually happened, and then they basically had to refresh, just really force the algorithm to try to find that perfect combination to get this thing to actually happen. But in reality, this is not something that's widespread, and that is intentional, manipulative, and purposeful. What was it called? Not just criminality, but it was obviously criminal intent. They knew what they were doing purposefully, and so they got busted. And now Elon Musk is going after them, and it is bad. It only got worse from there. With the next article. But do you want to cover something else that I missed here, Stephen?
Oh no, this story is very indicative of what the left does.
Yeah,
is they will take something and kind of twist it out of its normal proportionality, and they will move it into, oh, this is a totally normal thing that happens.
Yeah.
Like if you took, well, even if you were taking a video of someone like Javier Milei, and you took the video of him having a chainsaw at a rally, and be like, oh, this represents the entire conservative right wing. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Yeah, he's a libertarian, and we respect, Argentina is in a bad situation. But Argentina is not going to have the same solutions as other nations, and you're not going to have a leader in North America who's going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to take a chainsaw to spending, and we're going to cut all social there isn't a single conservative in North America, aside from maybe Ron Paul, who is like, yeah, let's take an axe to spending. And so it would be akin to that in terms of the deliberate misrepresentation of the facts in order to spin a deliberately deliberately misleading report, which is what they did. And because of it, several advertisers dropped out, and I hope Media Matters gets kind of sued into oblivion for it.
Right, but here's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of people jumped on this. So not only did Elon Musk do this, but the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovsky, he also basically said we've also been hit by this. We've also been hit by Media Matters, and they basically have receipts, and they're saying we're willing to join the lawsuit against Media Matters because they've done that to them too. And he had a whole thing about what they were doing, what exactly they were up to. And then a lot of major publications like the Babylon Bee, Timcast IRL, Rumble, what's it called, Betty Johnson, a lot of them basically, and even do you know the controversial the masculinity guy that was imprisoned in Romania? Remember
Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate even pledged that he's going to spend I think it was $1 million or something, or a lot of money to Twitter in order to kind of as a kind of a counterweight for the loss of the advertising that these people did. So it sounds like this is a kind of a pivotal moment for the conservative movement, because there's actually a very strong legal pushback that could really severely hurt this company. Yeah. And hopefully this will be kind of a kind of a shot across the bow for other companies that might be considering doing this. Worst case scenario, if Media Matters gets obliterated and can't afford the legal defense, they're just going to shut down, and then they'll just start up another company. But it's by the way, anyone who tries this, you're going to be next. Yeah. And that's when I'm hoping this happens. But it wasn't just the fraud. It's not just the legal fraud, the loss of income. There's more to this, and the biggest impact that happened was when the Attorney General of Texas got involved, and that's our next story. And this is where this really got this got big.
All right, so Ken Paxton announces investigation in media group following Elon Musk lawsuit after a report from Media Matters showing advertisements for major brands appeared next to anti-Semitic posts. We already talked about this. The Texas AG's office plans to investigate the nonprofit for potential fraud. Earlier on Monday, Elon Musk filed a federal lawsuit. Paxton said his office would investigate allegations that Media Matters, which he referred to as a radical anti-free speech organization, had violated Texas laws protecting consumers from fraud. Quote, we are examining the issue closely to ensure the public has not been deceived by the schemes of the radical left-wing organizations who would like nothing more than to limit freedom by reducing participation in the public square. Two of Paxton's former top lieutenants filed the lawsuit, former Solicitor General Judd Stone and former Assistant AG Christopher Hilton. And so last Thursday, we talked about that. And so the petition alleges that they knowingly and maliciously manufactured side-by-side images depicting advertisers' posts on the social media platform next to white nationalist and anti-Semitic content. According to the lawsuit, the reporting misrepresented the average user's experience. So they did not immediately respond to a comment.
Yes. So here's the significant
there.
Here's the significant. I mean, it sounds like just like par for the course, but this is a kind of a seminal moment, and this is one of those seminal moments in American, in the American experience. Kind of like when Trump got indicted, when that first indictment came down, that was like a kind of a big watershed moment, because like no ex-president had ever been charged after the case, after he had left office. That was like a watershed moment. This is also a watershed moment in that this is setting the precedent that like any media organization that is maliciously, purposefully, and knowingly trying to lie and cheat and manipulate the facts in order to cause like financial damage to any companies, that there's now not only a precedent that you're gonna like potentially face like legal consequences, but the attorney general getting in there. This means that there's now criminal charges added to the mix, and that's big, because what that means is that instead of just facing financial penalties, like obviously if Media Matters gets sued by Elon Musk, like okay, there's a lot of like financial costs that they might have to bear, but with Ken Paxton getting involved, that now means there's now criminal penalties that are on the table, which means that the authors of the article, the editors, the people who work at Media Matters who did this could now face criminal charges, which means that they could actually go to prison.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this scenario. Imagine you are a writer for, I don't know, for Vox or for Daily Beast. Now you know that if you're complicit in creating a completely fabricated and manipulated, manufactured story with the intent of like forcing advertisers to drop like one of your political enemies, that you're now thinking like, holy crap, if this doesn't go the right way, I could actually go in jail. Talk about something that's going to make them think twice about doing this kind. In the past, nobody cared in the left-wing circles. Nobody cared about doing this, because they're like, whatever, like we're never going to face any consequences. There's no downside. There's no backlash is going to happen. By the way, Steven, can you pull up that Twitter post that was just posted on the Twitch? I want to show that one because this is kind of relevant here.
Yep.
So a lot of the times what happens is the left-wing media was never afraid of the consequences. Never. But now it's like, oh crap. There's like legitimate consequences. The company that is making these false statements and false things can now face very serious, severe legal penalties, but also possibly criminal ones. This is big, and this is this was the CEO of Rumble, who's like now adding to the mix, and he's now actually also going after Media Matters for what they've done. So I don't know if you can kind of go into it.
Okay, so. Basically, it just covers up that claim that advertisements for Netflix were placed on videos that violated our content policies. However, according to Google Analytics, the week before publication of the Media Matters article had been 0 page views of that video. That means that Media Matters activist who took the screenshot was the first human being to actually view the Netflix ad on the video in question, although the story left the false impression that it had a widespread problem. Same is true for most of the videos cited by Media Matters, all of which were removed from Rumble as soon as we were made aware. Clear that Media Matters intends to mislead and deceive about advertisements on Rumble in order to hamper free speech. And so this is kind of just evidence that they were proving what they were saying about how it had 0 views and then it jumped to 8 or 34. So
yeah, I mean they basically have
disingenuous and dishonest from Media Matters, but that's those of us who have been following them. We know that Media Matters has never really been all that honest to begin with.
No,
so
but the problem is
anything new.
Problem is not that they're not like relevant or they're not like affecting regular people. The problem is that they're still dangerous.
Yes, that's true.
Because this is by with this little like attack ad campaign that they did, Twitter or X, Twitter X, basically lost like major advertisers like Apple, like what were some of the other ones, Steven? Do you remember?
Apple, Disney, IBM, and I know those were like the main ones that they listed.
The main ones, yeah. So those are major advertisers. Those are like people that spend like I don't know, like in the realm of millions or billions of dollars of advertising dollars. Like it's a big hit. So like Media Matters may be for most conservatives, we like dismiss them instantly. We're like, yeah, we know what they are. We know they're liars. They don't have an honest bone in their body, but they're still dangerous. And this is why this is a big deal. And by the way, if you thought this is big enough by itself, like the fact that like Twitter X and Rumble, they're going like hard after like these media, like the scammers. But it doesn't even end there. There's more people that are now going after the left-wing media sphere and their dishonest tactics.
Yeah. Okay, so from Newsweek. So Trump files lawsuit against 20 media outlets full list. Organization which former President Donald Trump owns, True Social, a social media platform, has filed a lawsuit against 20 media outlets, including Newsweek, alleging they defamed it through reports concerning its losses. So in the 12th Circuit Court in Sarasota County, Florida, describes reports that the company had lost $73 million since being launched as an utter fabrication. Lawyers for the company argued that reports in various outlets constitutes an unprecedented and seemingly coordinated media campaign, referencing that all reported the exact same false number within approximately 24 hours of one another, each citing to a Public Securities and Exchange Commission filing in which the mystery $73 million loss appears nowhere. Coordinated effort to damage the reputation, degrade the firm's financial standings, freeze its access to capital, and torpedo the anticipated merger between Digital World Acquisition Corporation and TMTG. So the loose figure was also referenced by Jimmy Kimmel, and they've been planning to merge since October 2021. The transaction had been beset with several missed deadlines, and the deal is thought to be a potentially lucrative one. That they had expressed doubts in the SEC filing about TMTG having sufficient funds to meet its liabilities as they fall due. DWAC said it was returning over $500 million to investors after the two companies missed the 2022 deadline to execute the merger. New deadline has been set for December 31st of this year. Deal is hoped to give True Social platform a strong financial position to remain competitive amongst a growing number of social media sites. However, its main attraction, Trump himself, returned to X, formerly Twitter, after a 2-year hiatus in August and following his account being unbanned by X new owner Elon, while an exclusivity agreement between the former president and True Social expired in June.
Yeah, look at all the publications that are listed in like this report. These are like big organizations. It's a little bit higher. Go up a little more. Yeah, right there. Nope. Right. Little lower. Right there, where it says MSNBC. Yeah.
So
as well as Newsweek,
Hollywood Reporter, New York Daily News, MSNBC, CNBC, Forbes, Axios, and Reuters were named in Monday's lawsuit. Rolling Stone and the owner of The Hill are also listed. Alongside these outlets are British newspapers, The Guardian, The Daily Mail, as well as the owner of the executive editor of the Miami Herald
newspaper.
Several online-only outlets, including Deadline Hollywood, the former of Benzinga, Market Watch, Daily Beast, the owner of Gizmodo, Mediaite, and Salon.
Those are big, like organizations, eh?
They are.
Now, here's what happened. In a really simplistic way, there was like this imaginary number that was floated around, and everyone published it. But nobody can verify where it came from. And the problem is that one, True Social can actually prove the actual losses. Because like if you say like, oh, you attacked someone's reputation, like like actually coming up with a number for what kind of damages happen with reputation is difficult. But with True Social, because they have analytics, they can actually give you an actual number of how much they suffered in losses because of this malicious defamation campaign. Secondly, it is absolutely provable that all of these outlets publish fake news or a false number, even though it had already been made public and obvious that this number was made up. So it's very difficult for them. Normally, any kind of defamation suit or like the suit like this is difficult to prove because you have to prove intent, and you have to prove damages. But in these cases, in both the True Social case and also in the Twitter X case, the problem is that they have receipts that they can prove that all of this kind of stuff, all of the elements are provable. And so if both of these lawsuits end up getting serious damages, this is going to change the landscape.
But the damages are completely disproportionate.
Right.
Because this is nuts. 1.5 billion? That's nuts.
But
absolutely crazy.
It could be a number that's remember, he's suing several organizations. The idea of this number is not to make up for the losses. The idea of this number is punitive. It's meant to it's meant to send the messages don't you try it, because this is going to cost you a lot of money if you do this on purpose.
Yes.
That's the idea. And it's divided among many organizations, not just one.
Yeah.
If it was 1.5 billion for I don't know, for the Daily Mail or the Guardian, I'd be that's ridiculous. But what was 12, 15,
the actual damages of these articles, even if they hadn't been corrected, the actual damages probably would have amounted to maybe 10 million.
Well, you don't know, because you have to remember, the idea of these attacks is to try to imply that True Social is kind of it's a dying brand.
It is,
and the idea is that you want to affect user. You want to basically damage user confidence in the brand so that they jump off and they lose it. It's the same basic idea that Media Matters did with Twitter X. It's they want to hurt them by going after their advertisers. Here they want to hurt True Social by going after their their reputation as a viable conservative alternative. That's the same basic idea. It may not necessarily be hitting advertisers, but they're trying to basically make the brand seem this brand is never going to go anywhere, take off, and all that. Both are financial attacks.
They are financial attacks. I will say, because I was checking through their financials and their users and their downloads. True Social is bleeding money.
Yeah, that's fine. But whether or not they're bleeding, that does not give any of these companies the right to lie.
I will not defend them lying. Yeah. I would have defended them if they had framed their if they hadn't just spouted a random number, and if they had been downloads are this and wage it this is what they've been reporting, and if they had been honest about it, because you can be honest and still be fairly negative about the outcomes of True Social. The CEO of True Social, I'm sure he just despises Elon.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, you have to remember
Elon killed him.
Yeah, no, the big picture here is what I'm trying to focus on. The big picture is that there's two teams. There's team censorship and there's team free speech. And whether or not True Social is a viable social media platform, whether or not it's successful or not, that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
What's going on is that these media companies are not going after True Social because they're he's they're delving in. It's because these companies are part of the media industrial complex that wants to control the flow of information, and True Social is one of the sources that they want to go after. And it's an easy target because Twitter X is much bigger, much more popular. True Social is a little bit more like a specialty kind of like, like places. It's kind of like, there's a lot of specialty social media, like, like systems out there, like Substack. There's like Gab. There's what's the one that Ian Crossland founded or helped found? Minds. Yeah, Minds. There's a lot of them like that. A lot of like smaller ones that are not quite and nowhere near as big as like Twitter, but they're still viable and it's still like like are a good place for people to go if they want to have like like a place where they can just say what they want. So I am glad for these kind of like lawsuits. It means that there's been a shift in the in basically the war and the battle. And a lot of these conservative channels and a lot of these conservative places are starting to get some major wins. And this, I'm hoping that this turns out like favorably for True Social, whether or not they settle or not. I still think it's good because it's at least sending the message to all these like deceptive and very like malicious like media companies that there's now a price to pay if you're going to play this game. I think that's great. That's really good.
Yep.
Anything else you want to cover, Steven?
No, that was pretty much it on the True Social story. It was like, yeah, it's good to call out liars.
Well, it's a big deal. I mean, like Tim Pool thinks this is like a massive deal.
It's a reasonably big deal, but it's fairly minor in the grand scheme.
Okay.
We know that like this is I think the smallest platform by far of all.
I think you and I. Well, I mean, I'm grouping this together with the Twitter X kind of story.
Yeah,
I pushback from conservative, like like companies. I think you and I are going to have to agree to disagree on this one. I think this is a big deal because, like, not just this one, but also the lawsuit from Elon Musk, because this changes the landscape, and I'm really hoping that this will actually have a significant impact in the Wild West kind of situation that was happening before. So we'll just disagree on this one, but anyways, take us to Michael Rappaport, Stephen.
All right.
Or speaking of unhinged, unhinged people, let's talk about Michael Rappaport.
I am effing sorry. One of Trump's biggest unhinged haters says voting for him now on the table.
Yeah, this is a big deal. So we're winning, man. We're winning.
Winning.
Yeah. Like when you have people like this that are like absolutely like rock hard, can't stand Trump, actually saying that like, I hate to say it, but I will actually vote for Trump, even though like he has to like hold his nose while he does it. It kind of like shows you that how bad the situation is for the Democrats.
Yeah. Oh, the situation is terrible for Democrats. They had Cardi B calling them out.
Yeah. It's like thermonuclear for Democrats. All right. Now.
So I'm fairly certain this requires an NSFW just because it's Michael Rappaport.
It is. Yeah.
So
if it comes down to pig dick Donald Trump and smoking Joe Biden, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Voting for pig dick Donald Trump is on the table. I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry. I'll still call him slob dick Donald Trump, pig dick Donald Trump, and all that.
This guy.
But we need to get this whole fucking situation under control.
Yeah, that is how bad it is. Like for the Democrats right now. Like, did you hear that they're losing? The results right now for what was it? The results for like the youth vote in America is like apocalyptic. Like that, no young people are excited to vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah,
I was like, dang, it's not a massive
no
part of it, but it's a fairly significant hit to the Democrat hopes of voting for the future. I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah, like this is
big.
It's a fairly sustained effort to push Joe Biden out now. Like it's becoming more and more likely that there will be a sustained, continuous effort until probably middle of next year to replace Biden with Newsom.
Yeah.
So that should be interesting. Newsom is gonna be better in terms of like he's a far better candidate just because he's a lot more with it.
It's kind of like what we had here in Alberta, where Rachel Notley is pretty much the reason why the NDP lost, because it was so easy to go after her record.
Oh yeah, and she still refused to step down.
Yep. Which
I was like, you're nuts.
Which I will say the same things for Trudeau. A lot of people are like, why the heck won't this guy like step down? It's so obvious that the guy can't win.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, I'm just gonna stay. I'm just gonna stay on top. It's like,
well,
okay.
it's very similar to what happens within the Democrat Party. Like the Liberal Party of Canada they are run by people. Sup, guys? Greetings. Oh, interesting. So a brief tenure, brief swap over. So Nikim, greetings from Argentina. Well, hello to you in Argentina. If you want, I would love to get an interesting take about your new prime minister elect. we talked about him at the start of the show. We kind of laughed because he's very similar to a TV character known as Ron Swanson, who we kind of both have a passing love for because he's hilarious. So
Ron Swanson,
if you want to kind of give us your take on Javier, then we're down for that.
Awesome.
But kind of transitioning back to Trudeau and the kind of Democrat establishment. They both have almost complete control over the party. Like one of the first things that Trudeau did in 2015 when he got elected. Oh, not even 2015 when he got elected. In 2014, when he became the head of the Liberal Party. Do you remember the first action that he did as head of the Liberal Party?
What was it? He appointed like half the cabinet was female.
No. So the first action he did as head of the Liberal Party was he made it so that if you are even like slightly pro-life as a liberal, then you are ousted as a Liberal MP.
No, that was even before he was elected. That was like during the campaign.
I'm fairly certain that was like as soon as he was.
No, that was a campaign thing. He was actually campaigning on that idea. Like I don't know, maybe he didn't enact it until like his party won, but I know that was already on the table when he was running, like when the campaign was ongoing.
So
yeah, I remember talking about that.
May 8th. That was when he was already Liberal leader.
Yeah, like are you talking about when he was elected as prime minister?
No, when he was elected as Liberal leader, like leader of the Liberals.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm right. We're both right. Like, like he was doing this. Like he was already running on that. He
was kind of the shadow campaign because it hadn't really there wasn't an official campaign for prime minister.
Okay,
really, it's just the beginning. Let's go, Pierre. Yeah. I talked in a Twitter space yesterday, and I had a whole bunch of Americans like Pierre.
My favorite thing for most people, if they're not from Canada, is I like to ask them like, can you actually pronounce his last name?
Well, but he's not on the audio, so he can't.
No, I know. But like you listen to people all over, like every conservative
couldn't do it. It was hilarious.
No. Stephen Crowder couldn't do it. Even Tim Pool had a tough time. What's his name? Dan Bongino couldn't do it. Like tons of people have a tough time with his name because it is like Poliviavi or
it's always funny watching people try to pronounce it for the first time. Like as Canadian, I think the first time I read it, I was like Poilievra.
Poilievra.
Yeah, I was very like. I had to pronounce all the stuff. Let's go. Mm-hmm. See, Conquerworm, what I would love to see is a conservative minority and then the PPC that gets them over the edge to the majority. So they still have, it's basically the same situation that you have with the Liberals and the NDP. And so the PPC is like kind of, they need to go to the populist right-wing party to get stuff passed, and so you'll actually see some real conservative change in Canada because they control the majority.
I would love it if they had something like they have in the American Congress, like the House of Representatives, where they have like 20 members that are basically forcing them to to make changes because they have like so much voting power with 20 members. If the PPC, which is like the really really conservative federal party here in Canada, if the PPC are able to get like maybe a handful of seats, like 4 or 5, and that was enough to hold the balance of power with the Conservatives, like that would be amazing, because you would get like a lot of things done. So yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Poilievre, primarily because I think he is the best chance we've had in the last couple of years at a like kind of a reasonable leader, a populist style leader. Like I know populist is like a naughty word in like transgressive circles. By the way, I use transgressive on purpose because I don't call them progressives. They're not progressive. They're transgressive. But he's actually the kind of guy that like makes policies that help Canadians, because that honestly, that is what a prime minister should do. Is his responsibility is to take care of his own people, not to be like the hero for the rest of the world. It's Canada first, and Canada is like, Canadians should be our priority. I would love an outsider for Canada, like Kevin O'Leary. O'Leary's a cool personality, but I don't know if he's a good prime minister. Like, there's a difference between being a really popular personality and whether or not you're effective as a leader. Like, one of the things I like about Poilievre is that he's actually trained in economics, kind of like Stephen Harper was.
Well,
and that's actually good.
Millet.
And who?
And Millet.
And Millet is also an economist, which is a big deal, because if you're an economist, that means like
that has
you
a
can
big
actually
impact on how you run a country, because you're running from a financial standpoint and not entirely just like as kind of a social standpoint.
Right? Or even I will say this, even Vivek Ramaswamy or Donald Trump, I think they're better qualified than someone like Joe Biden, because they are actually businessmen, which means that they know how to run a company, a for-profit company, and actually make a profit, which means they know how to make it successful and how to make things that actually work and are actually like something that helps and benefits people and all that kind of stuff. Hence why that translates so well into running an economy. So these are all things that I really like. So
okay, let's continue.
Speaking of a very successful
businessman,
so let's talk about Mike Lindell.
This is going to expose everything. Mike Lindell says Georgia voting machine ruling opened the door that no man can shut. According to Totenberg, there is sufficient cause to believe there may be cybersecurity deficiencies that unconstitutionally burden plaintiffs' First and 14th Amendment rights and capacity to use effective votes that are accurately counted. What's more, in a footnote within her 135-page ruling, Totenberg said the evidence in the case does not suggest the plaintiffs are conspiracy theorists of any variety. Indeed, some of the nation's leading cybersecurity experts and computer scientists have provided testimony and affidavits on behalf of plaintiffs' case in the long course of its litigation.
It's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And it was actually interesting. And Nikim, you could probably actually respond to this. So Argentina was using electric ballots. They were using voting machines, and then they switched. And they used paper votes during the election that happened last week. And Canada, for the most part, uses paper ballots as well. They, of course, the federal system and the provincial. They use paper ballots, and these paper ballots do get counted in one day, and in both the federal and provincial elections. You have to provide two things in order to vote. You have to provide a registered elector card that you get in the mail from Elections Canada, and you have to provide valid photo ID. If you had these things in place, like this is the simplest way on how you fix voting. Yes, there are going to be people who have to vote by mail. It's inevitable. There are going to be select people. You're going to have the exceptionally old. You're going to have military service members serving abroad. There has to be that small fraction of 1% that has to vote by mail. You can still go through processes to keep things on the up and up in terms of security. But there is no rationale for allowing, 60%? of the I forget exactly what percentage
Of what?
of 2020 was mail-in.
No, it was a massive amount. It was a very, very large amount. I don't know the number, but I know it was unprecedented because historically it was always absentee ballots. And that 2020 election was the first one where they did mass mail-in voting. They literally just nailed out like
43%.
Yeah, it was like that was the amount of people that actually were qualified as voting by mail-in.
No. That was how many people voted using mail-ins.
Of all votes counted.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which big is part more of than double what was used, or approximately double what was used in 2016 and 2018. Like, I think even the quarter in 2016 and 2018 is too high. Yeah. But jumping it to 43% is absolutely ludicrous.
Yes.
So
and here's the thing, for people who have serious concerns about the voting system in the States, they want to make you feel like you're crazy for doubting or questioning the election. That's by design. They want to basically make you feel like you're crazy, but you're not. This was the 2020 election was the first one where they had mass mail-in voting. Mail-in voting, if you compare mail-in voting to in-person paper ballots, completely different in how easy it is to commit fraud in one versus the other. Mail-in voting, it's universally accepted that mail-in voting is much more susceptible to cheating than is paper ballots. But they want to do that on purpose. The other one is electronic machines. This case by Michael Lindell, he's been ragging on this for a while. It's not that they can prove with hard evidence all of the all that there's vote switching. It's more that there is a long a very credible concern that these machines are susceptible, or at least
to hacking,
to all sorts of problems. And so again, you're making a system that's more secure, less secure by switching to electronic voting.
Yep.
Obviously, the idea is it's faster and easier, but I'm like, it's not.
It's not a good trade-off.
Convenience is not a good trade-off for something that's for security.
Well, convenience is not a good trade-off for security problems, and it's been proven now. Like, they said that this was going to be much, much faster to count, but in reality, it's proven every single time to be way slower because of all of these irregularities and how the machines kind of have these specifications for reading the ballots.
Yep.
And then you have a whole bunch of ballots which initially the machine rejects, and then nowadays they're like, oh, well, we want to make sure all the ballots are counted. And it's like, well, we understand that premise, but when you're doctoring the ballot, then you're providing a criminal element, because this was never, you never had in the past where you doctored ballots to make certain ballots appear better.
Yeah, and there's there was the example that happened in Philadelphia last month where, they caught it. They say we caught it in time, so no problem, nothing to see here. But it was that actually happened where votes were being swapped. Do you remember that there was a Philadelphia election, and the votes were being swapped unintentionally. That was not part of the plan. And accordingly, they just said oh no, it's all good problems. So, the fact that the machines were doing that is concerning. That should be a big red flag. On top of that, in Arizona, we now know, because it's been proven in court, that what they did is they basically fed the wrong size paper ballots into the machines that made that basically clogged the machines. And then that was used as a way of sorry, you're gonna you plan to come here on this day to vote, well, you're gonna have to come back hours later and vote later or something like that. And that was a good way. The actual effect of that it had all the telltale signs of a deliberate interference in the political process, because So a lot of people come to vote, and then that's all the time they can make on a day to go vote. And then if you're told like you have to wait like an extra 3 hours or you have to come back later, a lot of people don't come back to vote. And these are like heavily Republican districts that they did that in. So there's problems. I'm glad that Mike Lindell is fighting the good fight. Like it's great. This is good news, and we want to see that kind of stuff continue. So
all right,
yeah.
So let's continue on. So from Fox News, Pink hit with community notes for false claim. Florida schools ban To Kill a Mockingbird Diary of Anne Frank. So music superstar Pink was hit with a community notes on X for falsely claiming some of the most celebrated books were banned in Florida schools due to pornography. On Monday, the singer went viral after an attack on Florida's education reform laws that crack down on books that aren't age appropriate.
She went, what's it called? She went Media Matters. She went full Media Matters.
She did. So the following are some titles of books that have been banned from schools in Florida. Let me know which book is porn. To Kill a Mockingbird, The Hate You Give, Forrest Gump, Catcher in the Rye, The Hill We Climb, The Kids Who Code, Atlas Shrugged, 1984, The Kite Runner, The Bluest Eye, A Wrinkle in Time, The Diary of Anne Frank, The Fault in Our Stars, Pink wrote. And then, of course, readers added context. Critics piled on the Grammy-winning artist so much that her post was slapped with a disclaimer saying this list has been proven incorrect. The community writes, these books are not banned. In fact, some are on Florida's required reading list. So it hasn't stopped Pink from her advocacy on the road. Earlier this week, she announced she would be giving away 2,000 banned books in her upcoming concerts in Florida, which is, of course, totally nonsense if she doesn't know which books are banned. So, good work, Pink. You're an idiot.
Way to go, Pink.
Way to go.
Well, this just shows that you should never get anything like don't ever take any kind of like political personality, their words that don't ever take them at face value. Like it's kind of the same trope that happens with it's the same trope that happens with what do you call it? Those comedy shows like was like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver or Jimmy Kimmel or whatever. They're comedy shows, but they try to like actually share like supposed facts. So whenever they're caught like spreading lies and obviously deceptive and misleading ideas, they're like, well, we're just a comedy show. We're just making jokes. You can't take it seriously. It's the same thing with like celebrities. Like, oh well, whoops, my bad.
And we are like, we can be guilty of some things where we too readily share things. And so, like, I'm always advocating for it's like, okay, if there's some like serious crazy news, always try and find like a secondary source to back it up, especially one that's like on a slightly different bent of the political spectrum. Now, of course, there might be exposés, there might be stories which only come from one news source, but in order to have a balanced perspective and to make sure that you are getting factual news all the time, try and have your news sources corroborated by other sources, and that way you can at least have a very good impression that what you're reading and that what you're repeating is going to be true. I had to tell this to my coworker today.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, like, both Israel and Palestine are evil. And I'm like, which side would kill the other if they had the chance? And he's like, both sides would kill each other if they had the chance. And I'm like, do you realize that if Israel wanted to, they could bomb the whole thing? And he's like, no, they can't. And I'm like, you don't know what, like, they have nukes.
They're the fourth strongest military in the world.
I'm like, they could turn Gaza to a pile of rubble in minutes. And he's like, no, they can't. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a low information voter right there.
And I'm like, come on, man. Like, you're a nice guy, but you just do not know a single thing, which, like, because this, of course, spawned because somebody had already painted. So I painted over the rocks at the University of Calgary campus. I painted them over on Friday morning. I woke up at 3 a.m., painted the rocks at like 3:45 to like 4:30. And then by Sunday, they had already repainted over them. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow, like the Hamasniks are just they're really strong on campus. And he's like, well, what's the point? And I'm like, see, this is why they've been allowed to have this voice for so long. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because so many people see that it is a fruitless effort to stand up to things that are wrong, to injustices. And he's like, well, how is it injustice that they're being painted on? I'm like, they support the events of October 7th. They support the hostages. And he's like, no, they don't. And I'm like, you need to do your research. 70% of Palestinians support this. And he's like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I've looked at the data. And he's like, well, I've seen information where like Israel deliberately targets children. And I'm like, that's total nonsense. It's absolutely bogus. And I'm like, you need to do some from the river to this. Yeah, from the river. Yeah. And I told him that. I'm like, that's a literal call for genocide. And he's like, well, but like the people that are painting the rocks, they're not in support of that. And I'm like, yes, they are. They chanted Allahu Akbar on campus 3 weeks ago. They are exactly the same people. Palestinian supporters, like we just saw them in a video on Sunday. Palestinian supporters got and had a violent interaction with police because police tried to force them off the road after they illegally blocked it.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh my gosh, like the police are attacking the Palestinians. If you deliberately block a road, the police have the right. If you have not gotten permission to do so, the police have the right to remove you. And they're like, oh my gosh, like this is how they deal with non-white protesters. And I'm like, you idiot. No, I think this guy is like, it's hard.
From the river to the sea?
Well, no, because he's
got the Leo DiCaprio kind of thing. Yeah. By the way, a quick while you're figuring that out, a quick update.
It's hard to tell exactly.
Yeah, quick update here, Steve.
Yep.
I'm just kind of looking at Pink's like Twitter X kind of post. It's interesting because after that post that she made, she's doubling down hard. Now she's going into like, here's like a specific book ban from Pennsylvania. Here's a very specific book ban from Indiana. Here's a very is like she's trying to basically like double down and be like like she won't even admit that she lied, that she got it wrong or she lied. She's just like like, oh yeah, here's a specific book that got banned at this specific library in this specific state. It's like at this point you're just nitpicking, cherry picking everything. It's obvious that it's obvious what they do. They're trying to make an equivalence, a false equivalence between banning pornography and banning of like or it's not even a ban. It's not a ban. It is a and thank you. Like it was hard to tell you're joking from text, since that's why it's difficult.
Well, and of course we have had. It's usually interesting. It's like every Tuesday we seem to have the pro-Hamasniks show up, and then we'll have like somewhat long conversations with them where they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like Israel is evil," and we're like, "Okay, is Hamas a terror group?" And they're like, "It's not that simple," and we're like, "Bye."
See you later.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, did you by chance catch last Friday they had like the Culture War podcast with two guys. One was like from anti-war organization, and the other guy was like defending, at least trying to defend like Israel's right and to defend themselves and also like their actions. The guy with the anti-Israel approach. He was so infuriating. You ask point blank, are they terrorists? Well, it's kind of hard. They're not terrorists anymore. I'm like, how do you know that? Because like they changed their charter, so their charter doesn't say that. Like you remember those things about the charter, like the pro-terrorist kind of like that they want to genocide Israel. Apparently, they changed it like like somewhat in the last couple of years. And then Tim Pool checked it and it's like, oh yeah, no, they have. It's like, you see, that's proof they're no longer genocidal. And I'm like, this guy is so damn. This is a good example of a faux intellectual where he tries to like use all sorts of like clever
kind of
ways,
like niche things to like try and excuse this.
It's so stupid. I'm like, it just got frustrating after a while. You're just like, come on, buddy. Like you can't even like admit something that's obvious, that these guys are hunting people. He's like, well, yeah, but you have to look at the big picture.
No,
like,
you don't.
They were like oppressed for so long.
Well, like we didn't even mention we don't even have it as a story, but we should mention this. So the University of did you hear about the whole University of Alberta thing?
Tell me.
So University of Alberta released a report on Friday. This became like international headlines, actually.
There's a lot of stories to come out. So what?
So
happened?
so the University of Alberta Sexual Assault Report Center released a kind of this article on October 7th, and they're like, yeah, no, there were not any women that were raped or sexually assaulted on October 7th.
In Israel?
Yeah, in Israel.
Oh,
and they're like, no, we deny this vehemently. Any claims like disrespect women. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the IDF, and they're like, nope, we counted like dozens of cases of rape, including one case in which a woman was, she had that happen to her, but she had that happen to her with a knife.
Like, well, they were holding a knife to her neck?
No. She was like, they raped her with a Bowie knife.
Oh, like actually used a knife to penetrate her.
Yes.
Dang, man, that's
and like went over and over until she bled to death.
Dang, man.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's super evil. And it's like, oh, and you guys are just like straight up denying this? And then even when corrected, they're like, no, like our report stands. And then thankfully the University of Alberta actually did something due to massive public outcry. So they did.
Who published that?
So it was the University of Alberta. Like, I'll find the article.
Was it a stupid student paper?
No, this was like an official. Here. So I'm just kind of. This is just the first one that comes up.
Okay.
So I'll link it in the. I'll kind of quickly highlight it. So this is like live switching. So I don't know that anything that goes on in this article. So they fired director of Sexual Assault Center for signing letter questioning attacks on Israeli women. So they fired Samantha Pearson, the director of the Sexual Assault Center, after she signed an open letter penned by ousted Ontario MPP that calls into question whether Israeli women were subjected to rape and sexual violence during Hamas attack on October 7th.
Dang,
so an independent MPP from Hamilton was the letter's first signatory. She was booted from the NDP caucus last month after making controversial comments in support of Palestinians. Pearson signed the letter on behalf of the University of Alberta Sexual Assault Center. In a statement, Senator, the University President and Vice Chancellor Bill Flanagan said, I want to be clear, the former employee's personal views and opinions do not in any way represent those of the University of Alberta.
Yeah, so this is an open letter. It's not like a report.
I thought it was an actual... I kind of misread it. But it was still like she signed it as an official member. And so she was basically... And I think she posted a tweet about it as well. It was like, yes, the University of Alberta Sexual Assault Center like thoroughly agrees with this letter, and like we deny any claims or allegations. And I'm like, what?
See, there's a very big difference between saying, in my opinion, I think it's unlikely that anybody got raped there, and saying like unilaterally nobody was raped or like nobody was raped on October. Like that's a statement of fact.
Well, and especially if you were signing it as like the representative of the sexual assault center where people are supposed to come to report their sexual assaults on campus. And it's like, oh, well, you think that makes Jews feel really safe on campus if they get raped? It's
like the joke in a lot of movies, like, well, that completely unrapes those women.
Yep. Oh yeah, completely unrapes them.
That's basically what you're doing. You're basically just through magic. It's like it's like, well, I don't believe that the Holocaust happened. So, well, that undoes that atrocity.
Yeah, it never happened.
Ceases to exist suddenly.
Yeah, but we do have to move on. So let's continue. Yeah. So let's kind of continue this story onwards with another person.
Sad. So many people are going downhill. It's just terrible.
Like I used to love LeVar Burton. So LeVar Burton threatens to physically assault members of Moms for Liberty who don't want small children reading sexually explicit material in school libraries. LeVar Burton, known for his role as Geordi LaForge in Star Trek and presenting the children's show Reading Rainbow on PBS Kids, recently threatened to physically assault members of Moms for Liberty. According to Publishers Weekly, he hosted the National Book Awards and opened the ceremony by stating, before we get going, are there any Moms for Liberty in the house? No. Good? Then hands will not need to be thrown tonight.
What? like this is such an incredibly
It's an absolutely ridiculous,
deplorable
insane
comment.
statement.
Like, did he say that in jest somehow? Like, sometimes people say this in like just ridiculously dumb, like, ha 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 ha, like I don't have to beat you up tonight. Like, I don't know. It doesn't even matter. Like at the same time, like, man, like there are one of the problems, and this is one of the patterns. Again, not that it applies across the board to everyone, but the true believers, the people who are the lunatic liberals or the lunatic left. Okay, this is how they operate. They hate and totally are intolerant to anybody who does not believe what they believe. It's not just like, oh, you're wrong. It's you're evil, and I now have the right to assault you or use violence on you because you are denying my truth. That is basically what is going on. Like the problem with LeVar Burton and like Pink, these are people who are so deluded. Like it's almost like lunacy, where you're so convinced that you're right that like you can't even fathom the idea that that you might be wrong about this, or that you might be misrepresenting what's actually going on. He's so convinced himself that these like darn evil conservatives are are hurting kids and are just banning books, that he feels justified. And I'm like, it's like you live in an echo chamber long enough, you'll begin to believe the nonsense. Like the Simpsons episode of the what was that episode like where they have like the cult that they all joined, and like the leader is great. The leader is great. We surrender our will as of this day. And they basically like force him by exposure. That's basically what happens with a lot of these people, and it's sad because you think this would be a reasonable person, like a smart person, but then you're like, nope. They've basically either through fear and intimidation of being canceled, or because they're true believers, they actually say things like this that are just insane.
Just absolutely insane.
Yeah,
and there's no defense. Like even if this was slightly said in jest, like this is like a call for violence, and be like, oh yeah, like we don't have to violently assault anybody tonight. It's like, is that something that you say like as a joke to other people? Like really? I would never say that as a joke to another person. Be like, oh yeah, now I don't have to like beat them up, ha ha ha. If it's my friend, I'll be like, oh no, I don't have to attack you, haha. But if it's somebody that disagrees with me, and I'm like, oh, they didn't show up, now I don't have to pummel them into non-existence. It's like it's very different when you're talking about someone who like disagrees with you and you actually would have real beef with, instead of just joshing around with your friends.
I agree. Like my money would also be on Moms for Liberty.
Oh yeah, most of these like they'll die. They'll fight for their kids without any restraint.
But most of the leftists, like like a lot of these guys are like soy boys,
limp-wristed.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that thing we covered last week, where like that's what was that senator who's like, "Let's go, man, let's go, bring it on."
Let's go.
You agree? I remember like I found out that senator like that we covered last week, the one from
former UFC.
He was a former UFC, and he fought well. He won most of the things.
No, he never lost.
Yeah,
he was undefeated.
And the guy that he was actually like threatening to fight, that guy was not a fighter. Like you see him, you're like, he's going to get absolutely annihilated.
Well, he kind of knew. Right. He's like, oh yeah, no, like they'll never let this happen. And so it's just like, well, this is of course going to be a massive show of gusto, but this is. I would definitely pay to see a mom be like, all right, you said you wanted to throw down, let's throw down.
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. Okay, I will agree with Steven Crowder on this. Violence is not bad. It's not good or bad. Violence is neutral. It depends on the context and whether or not violence. What's the purpose, and what was the? If you're using violence to beat up your child, then that's wrong.
Yeah.
If you're using violence to protect your child from a violent criminal, that's good. Okay. Now here's what I think. In LeVar Burton, let's give that a basic idea.
Yeah.
He's saying things that are so out of the norm and so undefensible. If he actually faced somebody came up and punched him in the face for saying something that stupid, like a legitimate, like a mom who was like actually kids, you think he would be saying that again?
No.
No, he would actually be like actually watching his words a little more. There's something to be said about polite. Like one of my all-time favorite like street videos is this one idiot, like this leftist protester. He was standing in the middle of the road. I think he was naked. I could be wrong. I think he was like naked or mostly naked.
Oh,
and
the
there's
guy tackles him?
The guy who comes out of his car yells at him. He's just standing there defiantly, and he literally like punches him right in the face.
Yep.
And the guy goes down in a heap. And I was like, thank you. Like, I'm not saying I like that. I'm saying that there are times like these people do not respond to reason. They definitely don't respond to any plea, any kind of like they're not reasonable people.
No.
And they just want to create chaos and havoc. That is a good way to teach them, like, you can't do this.
Well, and of course, like we're also saying, like, what we're leaning towards when we're talking about with like paying for the fight, like these are mutually agreed conflicts.
Right. It
like
creates
there's a vast difference between be like, oh, I'm going to attack you to advance my political agenda and make sure that you fear and that you are in fear of like publishing and saying your political opinion online. Or it'd be like, well, this is more of a symbolic fight that we both agree to, and that we're both going to have restraints, and we're not going to go overboard on it. Yeah, like we're both going to accept surrender, and
it's like the idea of duels. Duels used to be legal, but I mean, the duel was basically like a way of dealing with defamation.
Conflicts. Yes,
yeah, like if you're going to take the over the top approach of literally trying to destroy my reputation in person, I have the right to basically be like, you know what? If you're gonna do that, I'm gonna make sure that you better be able to put up or shut up, and that makes people a lot less likely to just flippantly throw you under the bus like that. It creates a polite society. So I'm like, it's at this point, people are so flippant right now with their words. Like LeVar Burton, that at this point we almost need an overcorrection, and I kind of I'm not saying I want him to get punched. I'm saying that he says this because he knows there's probably not going to be
any like actual repercussions.
Exactly, and that's why people
for joking about violence against conservatives.
Exactly, no repercussions means you basically do and say what you want.
Well, speaking of things that have no repercussions, apparently there's no repercussions for saying that Osama bin Laden was right.
Mm-hmm.
So TikTok removes hashtag for Osama bin Laden's letter to America after viral videos circulate. TikTok removed the hashtag letter to America from its search function after videos of Osama bin Laden's 2002 letter to America went viral on the platform and were re-uploaded to the social media platform X. Some social media users suggested the Al-Qaeda founders document gives an alternative perspective about the U.S. involvement in conflicts in the Middle East. TikTok's users have been sharing the link to the Guardian's transcript of bin Laden's letter, which was written about a year after the terrorist attacks, which killed nearly 3,000 people. In the letter, he addressed the American people and sought to answer the following questions. Why are we fighting and opposing you? What are we calling you to? And what do we want from you? And of course, it includes anti-Semitic language and homophobic rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, of course, not surprising. And it also literally calls for the destruction of America and the establishment of Sharia law across the world. But if, the left doesn't look to that, they only read kind of the lines which are important to them. And the lines which are important to them is America is evil because they are capitalist.
They're the oppressed. They're always the victims.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. So
which was the same approach that the guy on Friday that drove me nuts. That his approach was Israel bad, Gaza good. Everything he did.
Very complex and nuanced argument.
But Gaza good. Gaza's always victim. Gaza always, everything that they do is always good and benevolent and in good faith and all that kind of stuff. And Israel, they're bad. And Netanyahu, he evil and they did bad things. And I'm like, okay, so that totally justifies genocide. It's like no, but Gaza, it's always Gaza good, Israel bad. That's basically like everything down to a nutshell. So this falls into the same premise, the idea that bin Laden is good because he's victim. He's oppressed. He has less power than the United States, hence he's the good guy. And this is how leftists read the world. It's very black and white. He's a good guy because he's the oppressed underdog.
Yep.
And that's why he's excused. Yeah.
And then speaking of who the left interprets as a leftist kind of oppressed underdog, Israel-Hamas reached day for 50 hostages in exchange for a multi-day ceasefire in war. Israel approved a deal with Hamas in which 50 hostages held by the terror group would be freed in exchange for a ceasefire in Gaza lasting at least 4 days. The Qatar-mediated agreement was approved by the Israeli cabinet early Wednesday morning local time after more than 5 hours of debating. As part of the deal struck more than 6 weeks into the war, Hamas is set to release 50 of the 240 hostages taken during the October 7th attack. Hostage releases would occur over the course of a 4-day ceasefire, which has been devastated by Israel's retaliatory airstrikes and subsequent ground attack aimed at destroying Hamas. Pause in fighting would extend an extra day for every 10 additional hostages released by Hamas, the Israeli government said. Along with the ceasefire, Israel was reportedly set to release some of its Palestinian prisoners. So, U.S. officials have said they were hoping that Abigail Moore-Edan, the 3-year-old American girl whose parents were killed on October 7th, would be amongst the children included in the negotiations. Ahead of the hostage negotiations, IDF soldiers transferred detained Palestinians on Tuesday out of the Gaza Strip. It's unclear if those transferred might be amongst the prisoners released in the hostage negotiations. So, I understand that ceasefire is something which the international community has been asking for. It's basically what Hamas has been begging for because they want a reprieve. But
it's like what we said.
Yeah,
a ceasefire only
more time.
Because a ceasefire like Hamas is never gonna surrender.
No,
they're not gonna keep fighting. Anything that gives them the ability to plan
more attacks.
Anything that gives them time to reinforce, to resupply, and to basically I don't know, do everything that they can to basically get back to their battle plan. It's only going to help them. It's only going to draw out this conflict.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been saying adamantly, a ceasefire on a phase sounds like, oh, this is good.
This is a good idea.
No, it means more death in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I never really supported it.
And of course, I think that it was exceptionally foolish to agree to the terms that they would extend it by 1 day for every 10. So if Palestine releases another 150 hostages, then it extends the ceasefire for 3 weeks.
I'm sure they put that in their calculation.
Yep. And I'm concerned that they will try and put that in, and then they will try and kind of put because what has been happening, of course, is that Israel has been encouraging and promoting and pushing for Palestinians to evacuate from the conflict zones. This ceasefire,
they have.
Oh, and they have. There has been
the vast majority of the people in northern Gaza have actually left them.
Now, I am concerned that this kind of prolonged period of ceasefire, if it is extended past the 4 to 5 days, that Hamas will find more ways to put more of this evacuated and displaced civilians back in, so that it creates an issue when the conflict resumes. It'll be like, oh, look, all of these, there are even more civilians that Israel is killing and trying to kill us. And it's like, well, yeah, because you guys brought them back in.
Bing pot.
I know, I thought you'd enjoy that. Bing
pot. Bing pot. So good.
So
yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
This is something which I think is going to have negative repercussions in the long run.
However, yes. I will say this one thing, with this, that the fact that Israel themselves decided to do the ceasefire, I think that's the only way I would support a ceasefire. I wouldn't support it because, international pressure or whatever. Maybe there was international pressure was part of the reason why they chose, but at least in this scenario, this allows them to at least make
terms.
Make it terms that are going to be at least acceptable to their own people. Yeah. And they're not giving up the fight. They're just kind of putting a pause. That pause also allows them, I mean, as much as it helps Hamas, it also helps the IDF, because it helps the IDF to resupply and also to maybe do some more kind of planning and more logistics before they go in, because they basically have to go into the fortifications underground that Hamas has built.
Yeah. So this is something which we kind of also uncovered. So this is released today. One of the released videos, a captured terrorist claimed Hamas operatives and members of other terrorist organizations were present inside the hospital disguised as medical staff to blend in. Terrorists estimated seeing up to 100 other terrorists within the hospital, including in critical areas like the ICU. IDF has released new interrogation footage. Claim is based on recent activities and interviews conducted by the IDF Intelligence Unit 504, which specializes in gathering intelligence from inside Gaza. Senior officials stated that over 300 terrorists from various organizations were apprehended during ground operations and brought into Israeli territory for further interrogation. According to the official, information from these interrogations has been invaluable, leading to the elimination of operatives and ensuring the security of Israeli forces. In one of them, he claimed that Hamas operatives and others members of the terrorist organization were present inside the hospital. So this is a video that was published by Joe Truzman. So let's just watch some of that. We'll try and I was in the Shifa hospital. There were 50,000 people who sought refuge. I was there inside the hospital. And I know the doctors there. The doctors were furious because Hamas operatives and operatives of other terrorist organizations were inside the hospital. How many of them did you see? I saw around, a lot of them, around 80 to 100. It reached 100 people. Whose people? The terrorists. Hamas terrorists, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. In the hospital. In the Shifa hospital, in the heart of the Shifa hospital. Shifa, not the outpost. Shifa. Hamas operatives dressed as nursing staff, but they were not nurses or doctors. In those who identified with Hamas operatives dressed as medical staff in order to blend in within the hospital wards, even in the ICU. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, this, of course, throws a massive wrench in all of the kind of political propaganda, all of the ideology pushed by a lot of these mainstream media organizations, kind of hiding this notion that, oh, like, this is not a base for Hamas, like, you're just attacking a hospital filled with innocents and you're killing a whole bunch of these patients. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You have so many of these people that have infiltrated the hospital. They've used the underground compartments of the hospital as a base for years. And they have been using it as a staging area to fire rockets for many, many years by now.
You know what I found really funny, Stephen, is that like whenever we run into these pro-Hamas apologists, what is the number one thing they always accuse whenever we try to go dispute them on the facts? Is they always accuse us of being brainwashed by Western propaganda.
By Western propaganda.
And I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Like the amount of lies. Most of the Western news sources are incredibly biased and knowingly are spreading the very propaganda and very lies that that are pro Hamas. They're actually the foot soldiers for Hamas. They're carrying their water, and so I don't really blame them because they're doing it on purpose. They know what they're doing. They know that they're lying. But the problem is most general, just regular people, like the guys that you talk to in your job at your university. A lot of these people, they just they hear something, they're like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, oh my good gracious, immediately they just believe it on his face. The other day I was scrolling through X, looking for things for the show, and I saw this one guy, and this guy has a reputation. You can tell the people like they're always sharing things that are pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas, pro-everything. And he shared something about it was a picture with no context. It's all these men who were like that, their faces were covered, and they're oh, here's a picture of all these Palestinian soldiers, and they've been they've been tortured and all that. And I'm immediately I'm looking at that, and I'm there's so much that you'd have to provide in order to verify that that's actually truthful. Because I've already seen the stuff you share. You have no problem lying and spreading complete lies. So no, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. You just don't. And a lot of these organizations, you have to have the ability to decide, okay, which organizations are going to be dishonest, and if they're going to be dishonest once or twice, then you have to accept that they're probably going to be dishonest. Everything that they say has to be considered false until proven true. That's the stance that you have to take with a lot of these that is the safest stance you can take, because so much of the media is lying to you on purpose, and if you just buy what they tell you, then you're going to believe all sorts of lies and nonsense. Well, it's kind of like your fault at this point, because like it's like if the first time they fool you, it's like, well, shame on you or shame on them. But if you keep falling for it over and over, it's like, well, now it's like, shame on you. You're not actually doing anything to really like to check to see if this is actually factual or not. Just like you were saying before, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little proactive to be able to check the stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, no, it's absolutely crazy. But
yeah,
it's not just in the realm like the woke nightmare, as Nakeem was saying. It's not just in the realm of Palestinian Hamas. It's definitely also in the realm of the sexual revolution. So Canadian boxer withdraws from championship after discovering opponent is trans. So this is an article which is definitely more on the left side. So we're just going to... But Walmsley secured victory by default as officials were unable to locate another boxer in the corresponding weight class. Female boxer Katja Bissonnette allegedly withdrew from Canadian championship match upon discovering that her opponent, Maya Walmsley, is trans. Bissonnette's opted out of facing Walmsley, who is biologically male, after learning about Walmsley's biological sex just an hour before the 2023 Provincial Golden Gloves Championship last month. My coach suddenly took me aside and told me he received information by text message, which was then validated that my opponent was not a woman. Miss Walmsley, or Walmsley, secured victory by default as officials were unable to locate another boxer. Hailing from Saguenay, Bissonnette referred to a 2020 strength study conducted by the University of Utah to elucidate her choice to withdraw. And Walmsley was not happy about it. Quote, rather than turning to me, my coach, or the Quebec Olympic Boxing Federation, for more information, she decided to turn directly to the media to out me. Walmsley wrote in a statement, this kind of behavior puts athletes at risk of being excluded or receiving personal attacks based on hearsay. Well, guess what?
Victim.
You are not the victim. It has nothing to do with being excluded based on hearsay. It has everything to do with you.
You're a dirty, rotten
serious putting Bissonnette in a serious risk of injury, just like Fallon Fox did to that other MMA fighter when Fallon Fox broke that girl's orbital bone.
Or like the volleyball player who, like
smoked him in the face and knocked him unconscious.
Actually gave her a full-fledged concussion. Or the football player, like the rugby player in Ontario who like sent several girls to the hospital because he hit too hard. I mean, all of these things. My stance on women's sports, and I truly believe that this is the only way to go. This is the only way you're going to make this kind of crap stop. And I hate to say it, but like it comes down to like, yeah, it's going to be a sacrifice. I get it. It's a massive sacrifice. A lot of these women only have one chance. Like in the Olympics, in soccer tournaments, whatever. This may be your only chance to really get the thing you want. But like the only way you're going to stop this kind of crap is you're going to have to, like, either individuals or teams, you're going to have to say, nope, we're not fighting. Not happening. Yeah. We're just gonna we're like, we withdraw, we refuse to to fight. This is a protest. If imagine like this scenario. What was the transgender swimmer from UPenn?
Will Thomas.
Will Thomas, okay. Imagine for a second that every single female, every single who was swimming against Leah Thomas in that swim meet. Imagine for a second, picture this. Every one of them goes up to that little platform, and they're about to start the race, and the shot goes off, and the only person who dives into the pool is Leah Thomas. Every other woman walks off that pool platform and decides, nope, we refuse to swim. This is incredibly inappropriate and unfair. We're not going to do it. And all of their coaches and all of the people around them, all of them like rally around them and say, like, we're supporting you. We're not going to let you get canceled. And yeah, the behemoth, like system that's basically like, designed to like attack them is going to like, come at them with like full force and like be like, you guys are horrible. This is the only way. This is the only way you're going to be able to stop this kind of crap. Because the problem is and this is sadly, I don't even know if this is possible, because with men would do that. men would actually there's a lot of men who would actually be like, no, I refuse to do this. I refuse. Imagine like a boxing match between a male and a transgender male, a woman who believes she's a man. If you're a man and you're just like, no, I refuse to fight. I'm not going to get into a ring and possibly injure the other person because they're like a woman trying to fight in the men's division. That would actually be a more foreseeable. But the problem is, and I hate to say it, this is part of the difference of genders. Women are generally, on the whole, they're agreeable, which means that they don't like doing things like that. And unfortunately, the best way to stop this is also the way that's the most difficult for women and girls to do, which is to refuse to participate. So good on this woman. I wish I saw more stories like this. This is the kind of stuff you have to do, just en masse. Be like, no, we all refuse to fight. We all refuse to compete. We all refuse to do this because this is cheating. This is pure and simple cheating. We're not going to take that. Yeah, it's going to take balls to become the best woman in your sport. And unfortunately, most women don't have the balls to be able to do that. So,
yep. Well, because they don't have any balls at all.
They don't. They really don't. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate gaslight.
It is the ultimate gaslight. I have no idea how to gaslight that, except because this is an issue about electric cars. So taxpayer fund from Rebel News, taxpayer funded electric vehicle plant to hire at least 1,600 foreign workers report. $15 billion battery plant boondoggles turned into a multi-billion-dollar catastrophe after Stellantis, the manufacturer, hired 1,600 South Koreans to build the Windsor plant and not Canadians as promised. The feds approved the $10 billion in federal subsidies for Stellantis last year, when the Ontario Tories provided an additional $5 billion. $15 billion battery plant boondoggle. Cabinet Monday confirmed they began issuing foreign worker permits to build the Windsor, Ontario plant, despite Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promising to create Canadian jobs. Trudeau said his government would create middle-class jobs. Partnerships like this are critical to creating new jobs and putting Canada on the cutting edge of the clean economy. By working together, we are creating thousands of new jobs. November statement from the Windsor Police countered that promise, saying they look forward to the South Korean workforce coming to Canada. Does it have that post from the Windsor Police? No, it doesn't look like it has.
I don't know.
The article doesn't have that story, but it doesn't have the Twitter post. But
I know that Polyev, just absolutely roasted Trudeau.
As he totally deserves that.
Of course he does.
Yeah. Well, Trudeau he deserves so much of the roasting that he gets. There's so many.
It's weekly. It's almost daily now. The guy cannot. Everything he touches is like a reverse Midas touch. Instead of turning everything into gold, he turns everything into crap. Everything he touches gets worse. Doesn't matter what it is. It's will in the battery factory work Canadian worker? No, there's going to be some Canadian workers, but a massive proportion of the workers are foreign workers. The rationale is that I was listening to this on Andrew Loudon. There's not enough Canadians that could do the high level training jobs. There's some jobs that require a very high level of accreditation and training, and they don't have enough Canadians that have that. And two, that some of the jobs are really low paying, really low income jobs, and so Canadian workers are not willing to work for that little. And so they have the both and problem. The problem isn't that that this is a company or a job or a business that is trying to find the best workers for that. That's fine. The problem is that this was advertised and sold to the Canadian public and the Canadian taxpayer under the premise that this is good for Canada because this is going to create Canadian jobs, and that's the problem. You basically made a promise that this is going to create more Canadian jobs, and now Canadian taxpayers are on the hook for $15 billion, and you lied about the premise. That is the problem, is that our government is not trustworthy because they lie all the time and they never, ever take any responsibility for it. So what does that mean? If you lie and you don't take responsibility, it means you're willing and likely to do it again. You're not trustworthy. That is why this is a problem.
Yep. All right. So, final story from Daily Hive. Judge rules Canada's decision to classify some plastics as toxic was unconstitutional. Federal
Yeah.
court has sided with several large plastic companies after they launched a lawsuit against the Canadian government's decision to list certain plastics, such as straws, as toxic under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. Suit was launched by the Responsible Plastic Use Coalition, which includes Dow Chemical Canada, Nova Chemicals Corporation, and Imperial Oil, 3 companies that are applicants in the case. Coalition argued that the Canadian government's order to label plastic manufactured items as toxic under CEPA was not based on science, but rather politically driven. Well, that was obvious.
The doy.
Decided that the order was unconstitutional outside of the federal cabinet's enabling authority was based on conjecture instead of evidence. And on Thursday, Justice Angela Furlanetto determined that the order was unreasonable and unconstitutional because the plastic manufactured items were too broad to all be classified as toxic. Oh, excuse me. So, yeah, this is yet another win. And of course, Daniel Smith and the Conservative Party was a big driving factor of this. So micropower to build a battery. This process is highly like, we're not saying that working in a battery power plant is a bad job. The problem is that this was touted as something which would benefit the Canadian economy and benefit Canadian workers, and that it entirely it became an issue because they imported a bunch of South Korean workers. And we know that, like, the Democrats in the United States and Trudeau here in Canada, they want to import foreign workers and give them jobs because that gives them a stable, consistent voter base. And you'll see a lot of new immigrants have a lot more inclination to vote for leftist politicians if they give them what they want, because it's an easy way to spend federal government monies and get a consistent voter base so you can do it all over again the next few years. How can migrants vote? They can. All you have to have in Canada is a permanent. All you have to have is a driver's license to register to vote here in Canada. So you can have a whole bunch of temporary citizens or temporary foreign workers that can vote here in Canada.
Yeah, I think yeah. By the way, going back to the Daily Hive story, this it sounds like a minor inconvenience, but this has been a source of incredible annoyance here in Canada. Like, so if you don't live in Canada, what our Canadian government has done, and this is why it's so infuriating. It's a completely unscientific ban on single-use plastics. No straws, no plastic bags, no single-use plastics, so like plastic cutlery. So what do? They replace plastic cutlery with wood. And Stephen, have you tried to eat something with wooden spoons?
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's the most unpleasant feeling ever. It's like that you
okay,
take like.
So I am actually incorrect on this.
What?
So in order to register to vote, like, I'm a little confused because you can be put on the election rolls. Like, you will not get an official thing from Elections Canada, but all you need to get a voter card and to register to vote on election day is 2 pieces of government issued ID. And I'm fairly certain on your driver's license they do not list that you are a temporary resident, as far as I know. I don't think you get a special driver's license as a temporary resident. Like, it says that only Canadian citizens can vote, but I'm fairly certain there are ways that you can kind of go around the system if you register to vote. Like, you're not going to get it via taxation, which is how most people get their Elections Canada cards. Like, that's how I got my Elections Canada card, because when you file your taxes, you click a box that says, I would like to register to be like a federal elector by Elections Canada. So I'm sure there are ways to go around the system. So I was incorrect in saying that all you needed was a driver's license. But when you have it, I know that all they ask is 1 piece of photo ID and then like a separate piece of identification. Like my
Yeah.
wife registered to vote same day by using an ID card and an Alberta healthcare card.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like, okay, do you receive that voter registration in the mail? Stephen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, which means that you're on the list.
Yeah, you're on the electors list.
Yes, and the question is, how flexible is the electors list? That's really the question. Yes, you can. Yes, the actual ID that you need in order to vote is fairly casual and all that. The real question is, who are they allowing to vote? That's the real question. Like whether or not you can verify your identity is like one question, but whether or not you're allowed to vote, that's the other question. Like for example, let me put it this way: imagine I'm okay, and I come to Alberta just like to visit a friend or something like that, and I happen to come during the Alberta election. Would I be able to just walk in and vote in the Alberta election, even like with just an ID? And like a mail, and if I'm mailing
I'm
address,
I'm trying to find, because like you can drive in Canada using an international license.
you can.
I'm just wondering about like when, in terms of permanent residency, that you actually have to get. But you can get an ID card.
Mm-hmm.
An ID card you do not need to be. You don't need like. You have to have a driver's license, like you have to pass certain tests, like you have requirements. But anybody who goes into a registry can get an ID card, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you have children getting ID cards. Because like there are people in high school who are like 12 years old and they have photo ID cards. So I don't know what the requirements to get an ID card. Of course, like we can look, if you want, we can follow up with people about this and do more research.
Okay. So, well, here's what they say in Elections Canada. This is the official Elections Canada website. Who is eligible to register and vote? To register and vote in a federal election, you must be a Canadian citizen aged 18 years or older on election day and provide acceptable proof of identity and. So at least in federal politics, you're supposed to be a Canadian citizen.
Mm-hmm.
The only question is whether or not how lax they are with those requirements. That is the only question. Kind of like in America. The problem in America is like, yes, the law says only American citizens are allowed to vote in federal elections, but the Democrats are trying to eliminate voter ID. Obviously, with the intention of trying to make it easier to cheat, trying to make it easier to get immigrants to vote, and some people are essentially musing or guessing that in the last 4 years or 5 years with Trudeau in power, we have like gone from like 37 million people in Canada, and we're now over to.
Yeah, I think
which means we have.
Did we recently pass Canada?
Oh yeah, we were definitely over 40 now. Which means that we have like possibly around 3 to 5 million new people living here, and whether or not they're citizens is a real question. Part of the problem with that is that Trudeau, Trudeau doesn't care about right and wrong. He will do if he thinks he's going to get him more power, he will cheat
all the time.
Yes. He will cheat, lie, and deceive, and do whatever he can to try to win elections. And so there's a lot of people who are musing that what's going to happen to all these immigrants? Like, is it going to be like something where he's going to fast track them to citizenship, or is he going to find some way to get them to vote, whether or not they're actual citizens or not? This is the real question about we know Justin Trudeau is it's not beneath him to cheat. Like, given his reputation with the with this was it CSIS when when the CSIS scandal broke that China was interfering with Canadian elections, like that was an obvious they're perfectly happy with he's perfectly happy letting China interfere because it helps him. With what was it, the SNC Lavalin affair, that was like he didn't want to lose votes in Quebec. That's the reason why he wanted to make sure that happened. And so, this the exact thing you said, Nikim, is that the left, basically their strategy is immigrants are going to help us, like, get the votes that we need to. That's basically the major part of their strategy in the States and their strategy here in Canada. That's pretty much a major part of their strategy. So we'll see what happens, but I'm glad that at least in Canada, we're getting wins. This is a win for Canada because I'm sick and tired of like this. This is like a pet peeve of mine. People cannot defend the straw ban. I've had conversations with people, family members, in fact, and I'm like, prove to me that straws are actually bad. And they can't do it, but they still want to do it. They can't prove that that the straw ban is going to solve the problem of plastic pollution in the oceans or in landfills, whatever. But no. They should still do it because it's about virtue signaling. It's about showing others that we're good people because we're doing the socially acceptable thing. It's like, oh my gosh.
All right, so I just actually looked this up just as a final thing. International students or foreign workers can, as long as they have like a bank statement or a utility bill, they can get an ID card the same as any other permanent resident or citizen.
Okay, so basically there's ways to bypass.
There are ways to easily bypass the system and have foreign workers, international students, all of them can bypass the system and vote. It's supposed to be only for Canadian citizens, but you can pretty easily bypass it.
What's the source for that?
So this was it just says Norquest College. It says PDF on international students. So it's like if you go to this college, like this is what you get for like this requirements to apply for an Alberta ID: study permit, passport, proof of residence, and then written confirmation of Alberta employment.
Yeah, this is why elections are why it's so important that the problem right now is that all of these progressive movements, all these progressive political organizations, whether they're in Canada, in the United States, in Germany, where Micropower is from, or other places, one of the problems is that the left, their view on things is that, or their ethos is the only truth is power, right? And so if you can find ways to cheat or bypass the electoral system in a way that helps you win, then that's good. That's moral. That's actually a morally defensible thing to do because you get the end result, which is you get to win elections. Never mind whether it's completely destroying elections. Never mind that you have to cheat to do it. It's totally fine because that's what they want. This is the problem, particularly in the United States. A lot of the Democrat approaches that what they want to do is they don't care about election integrity. They don't care about making elections secure. Want to make elections easier to cheat because ultimately they want to find easier ways to manipulate election, because to them power is the only important thing. It's not about representation. It's not about giving the people a voice. It's about we want power and we will do anything to keep it and to gain it. And that's the problem, that they don't want to secure elections. They don't want to find a safer way of voting. They just want to make it more and more easy for them to cheat and allow non-residents to vote. That's the issue. So yeah, but let's hope that changes in the next next couple of years when people finally bounce back.
Yep. So this is where we're going to end it for tonight, because of course I have to be up in under 6 hours to go to work because I work very early in the morning.
Boy gets tired.
Boy gets tired. Boy gets tired. So thank you for joining on the live stream. Very interesting conversation, especially from new guests Micropower and Nikim. Very interesting commentary from Argentina. Of course, that was very cool that we had you join on. It was very nice to meet you as well. Exactly as Malay was elected.
Yep.
And
That's
micropower, we would love to talk about Germany and all of that, but just don't have the amount of time today. So we will be back, of course. We do a live stream every Tuesday and Thursday night. We try and start at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. And we also stream on Twitter, and we'll be trying to incorporate more of Twitter Spaces and other platforms. Try and live stream and multi-stream to as many platforms, kind of spread our reach out as much as we can. You can check out our videos after they are uploaded onto YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. And you can find us on our text platforms at theshrewddudes.com and on Facebook, Gitter, and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we always like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you on Thursday, which is also my birthday.
Yeah.
So have a great night, a great couple days, and as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.